The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and today I'm with Josh Long. Josh, welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Glad to be here.
So Josh, you're an author, you have a podcast, you speak, you're a coach and a consultant. We'll talk about how you kind of put those two words together in just a minute here. But for the last 10 years or so, you've been running Bottleneck Breakthrough, which is your company where you work with mainly B2B businesses, help them to kind of grow beyond the plateaus that they've hit in their revenue. Real focus seems to be working with companies that are above $1 million or so in revenue. And I know you've worked with many that are way beyond that, but you have experience working closely with leaders like Tony Robbins, Perry Marshall, and a whole bunch of others. So today I really want to get into kind of how you got to where you are, lessons learned along the way, and have you share kind of some of those best practices that can really help out the audience here of consultants in the community. So let's start off with something that I almost had to read twice because I thought it was a spelling error and I wasn't really sure what was going on. But you call yourself a coach-sultant. And I always have to kind of watch my tongue as I'm saying that word. But I think it's a very clever combination of two words, coach and consultant. So just where did that come from and why did you decide to kind of create that title for yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yeah, I think as a consultant, a lot of business owners would see me as, and under the consulting label, it's great. I'm going to just give Josh this. He's going to take care of it. And he's going to give it to me on a silver platter, right? Out of the fulfillment, done for you, specialty, hired gun type of thing, right? And I'm good at that. But then there's this other side of coaches that draw out the best of us, that challenge us to become a bigger version of ourselves. And I realized after a couple of years, I did both. Like there was no way I could distinguish the two. It was impossible. And I really enjoy coaching. I've always played a lot of sports growing up. I was always kind of the team captain. I led teams like old man softball. I always say it was in college. I ran 2 teams of my buddies and was just always the organizer and always helping guys fulfill their potential, it seemed, in whatever I'm helping with. So that's the coaching nature of me. But then I bring subject matter expertise. You can't coach people towards, like, it's just mileage, right? I mean, the experience you've got, the reps you've had, the number of variables you've seen makes you a subject matter expert. That's a consultant. So I just thought that when people would always ask, well, what do you do? I was like, let me just ask some questions and then we'll get there. And I just thought coach consultant is just such an easy label. And it makes people stop. It interrupts their pattern. It lets them ask, well, what does that mean? And it would always lead to meaningful conversations. It's not necessarily great positioning, like worth modeling after, but it's what's stuck for me that's made it easy for people to kind of wrap their head around different ways I get involved in their company.
Oh, I mean, I think it's really smart because one of the kind of most important parts of messaging is to get people's attention, to get their interest, and to just have them go like, well, what do you mean? Tell me more about that. How do you do that? Right?
Tell me more. Like that's the marker of anything. If somebody says, tell me more, like you're getting in the ballpark of some kind of offer, some kind of pattern, interrupt, some messaging that attracts.
Yeah. And so this is really important for everyone listening and consuming this right now. Think about it and just kind of start to hit on or be open to kind of capturing, like every time you hear someone say, tell me more, ask yourself or just think about, what did I just say? And try and model that or repeat that, because as Josh just mentioned here, and I've seen firsthand over the years as well, it means that you are onto something. And I think the other thing too, just to offer as a bit of an action item for everyone here, Josh is using coach self. What can you use? What kind of language or messaging could you put together about your core advantage or expertise that would get your marketplace to say, like, what do you mean by that? How does that work? Tell me more. Test it. Try it. You might be pleasantly surprised.
And you may suffer from things that I suffered from. I call it smart guy syndrome, where you make it too complex and people just kind of go, huh? You've obviously missing the mark there. That's not, a confused face is not tell me more. And I got this one from kind of leaning in on a different positioning from a friend of mine who did wealth planning. But if he was at a party and he didn't want to talk to people, they say, what do you do? He says, I sell insurance. Like instantly, nobody wants to talk to him anymore. Like it's over with. So I think that's a good antithesis to this, is you want to make sure that you're not just instantly lumped into some category that they don't want to deal with.
Or unless you're like a business nerd like myself, where I'd probably say, well, what kind of insurance? Well, tell me about that. How do you get paid? What's your commission, structure? And I'd love to break that kind of stuff down. But
of course, but you and I are nerds, but we're not his target audience. We're just nerds.
Correct. And I think for everyone that's watching this going, well, are Josh and Michael related? No, we're not. I know we may look alike. We have the same hairstyle and probably the same shirt or something like that, but we're not. So let's now kind of get into this idea of bottlenecks and breaking through them, because that's actually the title of your book. Your company's all connected to this. What are some of the most common kind of bottlenecks that you've seen, Josh, whether it's from your own business or from other businesses that you've worked with, that you feel would really apply to the independent consultant or small consulting firm owner?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think more from the B2B side of things. And I think the consulting business model is more of a lifestyle business that fits our brain type, our nerdy curiosity, like you said, our willingness to help others. And it tends to not be as scalable, right? Like that the companies that I deal with are all running into past that $1 million plateau. And I like helping them cross that I'm calling it a 7-figure desert now, because you either want to stay at 1 to 2 million and make it a cash cow, or you want to scale it to 10 million and make it something actually with leverage that can either become something worth selling or where you get massive time leverage on it. But from a consultant perspective, I think some of the bottlenecks are engineering your offering where it requires too much genius in too heavy of a dose without enough leverage on the compensation. And so I think that is the kiss of death for a lot of smart providers, is they can never eliminate things off of their plate and they can never get any leverage, but they can't charge enough to make it worth their while. So it's like this kind of static threshold where maybe they're in the 15 to 20 grand a month range. They're making a good living, but they're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week or more than they want. And there's no way to get leverage on it because the deliverable they've engineered is either too complex to ever train somebody. Like I realize I don't want to grow a consultancy around bottleneck breakthrough method or my process, because I realize I really can't train somebody in to do all that I do, because it just is a natural gift, right? It's kind of a unique ability.
What do you do then in that situation? I mean, here you want to grow your business.
I keep refining my offer and keep looking for clients where same outcome, same effort, produces a multiplied outcome. So like, for example, I was talking with a friend yesterday. She's a real brilliant consultant. She's got an agency as well. And she was telling me that she stopped in the past, but she was doing $50,000 one-on-one days. And she did have at least one a month. And all it was she just focused on a guaranteed offer that it would add at least 100 grand a quarter in new profit ongoing. So, and she said she didn't have to say her price was 50 grand. It was almost like, if we could add 100 grand a quarter in ongoing new profits, what's that worth to you? And the general consensus number was somewhere between 30 and 50 grand. And she says, great. How does that sound for the fee? And like, you just move into more meaningful outcomes. A great example, I hate charging hourly. I hate it. I just hate it. I don't like it. I don't know if it's something broken in me, but I'm like, well, if I'm charging an hour, well, this hour I just gave you is only worth $20, but this hour is worth $10,000. How do I charge for that? Like that was always my problem. But I had a few friends and a few clients that were past clients that just wanted a spot call here or there. And one of them said, what's your hourly rate? I just need an hour of your time. I'm like, $250. Let's just throw it on at $250. And I found I had like 3 or 4 guys that would call me about once every 3 to 6 months. They'd pay me $250. And I was just like, I really don't enjoy these calls. And so I had one of them reach out to me in January this year, and we hadn't talked in over a year. A nice guy I really like. And he's like, hey, I was thinking, I'm looking at doing some of this, something else. And can I get an hour of your time? And I'm like, yeah, but it's 500 now. I wasn't being a jerk. I wasn't trying to posture. It just was like, let me just try it. And he wrote back, he's like, oh yeah, that's a little higher than I remember. I said, yeah, I want to make sure that I'm working on meaningful stuff on these calls when there's no commitment. And he's like, I'm going to pass. But then he sent me a long email explaining, he says, warning, I'm going to ask for your advice. You could delete it if you think I'm trying to abuse it. It probably took him 20 minutes to write this email. It took me a minute to read, 30 seconds to reply, and I was done with it. I was like, yes, I really didn't want to waste an hour on that call. And I've since now moved my threshold up. A one-on-one random pick up the phone call is $1,000. Because it's not that I'm so genius and my time's worth so much. It's I don't want to interrupt my current client load. I don't want to interrupt my free time. I don't want to interrupt the other projects I'm working on if it's not worth at least $1,000 to that business owner. And I think that's the reframe for me.
Two things that you mentioned that really stand out to me in terms of the opportunity for people to grow, because I want to make this very tangible for everyone listening, is that you said, one, you need to look at your offering, right? So how do you restructure the offering so that you can get more leverage out of it? And then the other thing that you said, which I thought was really powerful and so true, is really honing in on like the real ideal client. Because 2 different clients and you provide the exact same output, you provide the exact same deliverable, the same time, the same energy. Well, if one of them can receive significantly greater value by implementing it, then your compensation can be significantly greater because there's greater value there. So for people to not just accept that all clients, like even in the same kind of industry, that no people aren't made the same. If you can truly identify those where you can have a much greater impact, then right away that becomes a very big point of leverage for you to be able to earn more because it's going to create greater value. Anything that you would add to that, Josh?
Yeah, I've said it multiple times over the years, and I probably stopped about 7 years ago working with startups because unless they're venture backed, which I've never been able to work with one that's venture backed, but all other startups are 10 times the work, 1/10 the pay. And I don't want to sound like a mercenary. It's just opportunity costs. Like I only have me. That's it. And it's my time. And I want to make sure that I get the maximum leverage on it as possible because like Perry Marshall and I, we're real close and we're partners and stuff. And we were talking a couple of years ago. We're like, we're both way too smart to not be getting paid more for our knowledge and expertise. And the only reason we haven't up to this point is we're just too nice and we just try to help everybody that comes across our plate. And again, it can sound like a jerk. You can sound like a mercenary saying, no, not big enough for me to help, or you need to pay me $1,000 a call or something like that may come across cold or distant, but it's just opportunity cost.
All right. So 2 things for people to think about. One, we said is really considering the offer and how can you kind of restructure it to create more leverage. The second thing is to kind of dig deeper into that hyper responsive client, as I think Glenn Livingston used to call it, and just where can you create a much greater impact, more value, therefore greater compensation. Let's talk now about your business. And in terms of what you do to get clients, what right now from a marketing lead gen kind of perspective is working best?
I'm the absolute worst person to ask this question because
I don't mind. I still want to know, how do you get your clients?
Yeah, this is actually one of the reasons I've never created a certification program around bottleneck breakthrough method, because it's like, I don't have any path to get clients consistently. It's all networking. I'm an extreme extrovert. And when I worked for Chet Holmes in 2008 to 2010 as his marketing director, my network exploded because that guy knew everybody. And I'd worked with Dan Kennedy prior to that and Bill Glazer closely in 2006 and 7. Then 8 to 10, I'm with Chet. And I get to know Jay Abraham in 2010. And then Perry and I cross paths around then and then get closer in 2013, 14. And so I'm just an extreme extrovert. And like, I have no concern of looking a fool or being caught as a fraud or any of that. Like I definitely had insecurities, but it never stopped me from throwing myself out there and getting to know these guys. And so the biggest thing that I realized, people have asked me, well, how'd you get so close with all these big guys? Like, and I don't name drop. They're just guys I've worked closely with. And I've gotten a lot of clients through association with them. But I think the biggest factors are that 1, I'm an extreme extrovert. 2, I never ask for anything. I never show up and say, the worst kiss of death is, oh my gosh, I worship you. I'll do whatever you say. Put me to work doing whatever. Like, I mean, I've watched them field all of those and it's like, it's really bad. It's like some desperate person in a romantic situation walking up to you at a bar. Like you just look at them like, nah, you've got some mental issues, right? But it also puts a strain on them. Like they don't know your talent. They don't know, they're already trying to manage their organization. And people say, well, they already have all this money. They already have all this opportunity. Well, they have it because they're diligent with it.
So Josh, what have you done? So it sounds like you're saying I wasn't intentionally reaching out to build my pipeline and so forth, but what have you been doing then to build the network? What actions did you take to kind of get yourself in the right place, first of all?
Yeah, I mean, it's like with Chet, I was on the heels of bankruptcy. My mortgage brokerage had gone under in a ball of flames. And I was doing a webinar series in 2008, summer 2008, licking my wounds, trying to figure out what to do. And I interviewed a gal named Laurel Langmeyer on it. It was a financial thing. I'd come out of the mortgage business and she said she'd gotten started selling Kiyosaki's board games and got close with him that way. And I thought, oh, and I thought of reaching out to her because I liked her a lot at the time, but I thought, I love Chet's book, The Ultimate Sales Machine. I'm just going to figure out if he's hiring anybody. And he had a little recruiting thing. And I sent an email in and got picked up right away. Talked with Mitch Russo, his recruiter at the time. We talked for like an hour and a half on our first call. They hired me. I made all sorts of noise. I pointed out all these flaws in their business. I just kind of made a mess. And then I quit after 3 weeks because it was a mess. And Chet emails me directly. He's all, you're smart as hell. You can do whatever you want. Take a pick. And like, I just make a mess. I just point things out, try to fix them and try to help. I'm not being a jerk or anything. I've been called a prima donna plenty of times because I won't sacrifice for paycheck.
What's the lesson in that? Like what I'm hearing is you get very clear on a result that you want. So in the case of getting a job with Chet's organization, it's okay, that's what you want. You want the job with Chet's organization. You want that experience. A lot of people would look at that and go, okay, I need to build stuff. I need to prepare. I need to put all this stuff in place. And it sounds like from what you're saying that you just reached out, like you just took action right away. Is that accurate?
And when I taught at Fresno State for those couple of years too, taught entrepreneurship, taught business planning and opportunity and feasibility analysis. And I had about 40 students this semester, juniors and seniors, in entrepreneurship, right? They're writing business plans. And inevitably, I'd have half a dozen or so students every semester that I could connect them with somebody that could help them figure out their business or take a big leap up. I gave them numbers. I'd introduce them via email. Not a single one ever followed up and made that call. And I have never understood that because I'm the exact opposite. Like I'll chase somebody down, I'll find them out, figure out their contact info, email them cold. There was a startup I was working on. I don't remember what it was. It was some personal finance thing. And I found a guy who was the founder. He was now working at Google. I reverse engineered their naming structure of the emailed him, said, hey, I'm asking about this. And he wrote back, he's all, man, that's pretty impressive. Like you're pretty dogged about this. And I'm like, I don't care. We all put our pants on the same way. Like we're just people. Like my parents never said this, but a friend of mine said this to his kids. He says, strangers are just friends you haven't met yet. And I'm like, I think that's a great reframe. Like I'm just not afraid of reaching out to anybody. And I'm very comfortable with uncertainty. I'm not a litigator. I couldn't be Johnny Cochran, like in the courtroom. I can't tap dance that quick of objections. But if I'm meeting somebody, I'm comfortable just having a conversation and going deep.
How important do you think that is, Josh, to your success to getting to where you are today? That ability and that mindset to not worry about the potential for quote unquote, what some people say is failure, but just taking action right away. Like how critical is that to where you are?
For me, for my personal unique path, for where I'm at today, 100%. Like this is my unique journey that is wired for me, that's perfectly fit for me. And being an extreme extrovert, loving connecting with people, not being afraid of them thinking I'm some weird psycho that needs a restraining order.
Hey, it's Michael here, and we'll be right back to the podcast. But first, are you ready to grow, scale, and take your consulting business and marketing to the next level? If so, our Clarity Coaching program may be a great fit for you. You'll work with our experienced team to set up a strategic plan for your business and coach you step by step in areas like how to consistently attract more leads, develop a magnetic message that resonates with your ideal clients, strategically package and position your services, earn higher fees, win more proposals, and scale your business. To find out more about Clarity Coaching and apply, go to consultingsuccess.com and click on coaching.
What would you then say for someone that doesn't feel like they are as extroverted as you are, and maybe they hesitate to take action, to reach out? They know they're very good at something. They know that they can help people, but they're not just naturally comfortable taking action without having more things, kind of more of the plan in place. What advice would you offer them, or what might you kind of share?
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Yeah, it's a great question. I've had lots of friends that are in that spot that I'm really close with that are consultants. And the biggest thing that I tell them is get something that's easy for you to lead with, whether it's white paper, whether it's some value add that you feel like, okay, I can walk in, I can stay focused on delivering this piece of value and just sharing it and seeing if the door opens. So that's first. The second thing is when we're dealing with companies we want to be providers for. When we're dealing with decision makers, the biggest concern is that you're feeling like you're pestering them, that you feel like, oh, well, they didn't get back. I flip it 100% around. I still have to tell myself this sometimes, is it's our job to be delivering maximum value for them and interrupting their fires that they're putting out all day, because they can't keep up with everything that's most important. And as long as you are aligned with some outcome that's important to them and you're just checking back in, and I hate the check-in of, hey, wondering if you've seen the proposal yet. Hey, are there any other questions I can answer? Like, obviously get out of that rut, because you just put yourself in a very passive role and a very subservient role. But if it's like, hey, it's been a quarter since we've checked. I looked at your stock price. Looks like you guys are taking a beating. I'm imagining your goals have changed. Is there something we can meet on to see about changing the proposal that I sent, or see if your roadmap's changed or whatever? Like, again, just be proactive how you would help them if they were already your client.
Awesome. So let's go back to the story. I mean, you kind of used your comfort level of just reaching out and taking action to create these initial relationships, or at least to get in front of a lot of people that you wanted to work with or get to know over the years. But you've gone beyond that, right? Once you're kind of in place or connected to them, you clearly have kind of made a mark to the point where they are now actually comfortable referring you business. You said one key thing is that you don't ask them for anything. You're not saying, hey, can you refer me business? You're not kind of making those kind of requests. Is that correct?
100%.
Okay. What are you doing? What do you feel?
I pour so much goodwill on their head. It reminds me that there's a Michael J. Fox movie. I can't remember the name. It was in the mid 90s. He was a concierge at a really high-end hotel, and people would try to give him tips. He's like, no. And there was this one character where he's like, you'll know when to pay me back. And like, he wowed this guy's wife with some trip or some surprise thing. And then the guy like gave him like part ownership in his property or something. He's all, that's it. It wasn't a conscious thing for me, but it was like, I always want to be giving so much so that when I do ever ask, it's a no-brainer, or they can't help but start referring or giving back. And so, gosh, for example, Perry Marshall is probably the best example. I got on his radar more intentionally, directly, because one of his roundtable members hired me and invited me to roundtable as a guest. And I kind of co-ran that roundtable meeting with Perry just because I couldn't help myself.
You just started talking. You kind of like helped to facilitate essentially that environment. Got you. Okay.
Yeah. Then I got more roundtable members out of that. They just came to me. And after a couple of years, I'd had like 7 roundtable members as clients. And then Perry and Brian is a partner in all of it. I heard they were brainstorming how to revamp roundtable. And I messaged them all, hey guys, I might have some insight. I've got 7 of your roundtable members as clients. And I remember it was like December 2015 or something. And we're on a phone call, and like, I just gave them free advice and consulted with them. And they're like, wow, yeah. And I remember Perry pausing, and I mean, you know him well. He can think quite a while, but I didn't know him that well. And I'm like, did I lose you? Like, and I mean, just like, I'm in the middle of the call and he's dead stone silent. I'm like, does he hate me? Does he want to? I kept joking. I told one of my clients, she's like, I've got my monthly call with Perry, but I don't know what to ask him. What should I say? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, okay, I'll just tell him you've got it taken care of. And I'm like, no, don't say that. He's going to mail me a pipe bomb, like thinking I'm stealing his clients or something. And then their biggest need was they needed help with somebody to do implementation for their roundtable members. And so about May of 2017, Jack Bourne and I were talking, and he's like, go back to Perry, tell him you'll handle it. And I was like, you're right, I can, I'm comfortable. And they just gobbled it right up. And so I flew out, spoke at their next roundtable event in June, I think, of that year. And then it just goes from there.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is you put yourself intentionally in the right position for where you want to get to. And then you focus on delivering value. You don't remain silent. You're very active. People know that you're present, but you're leading not with commentary that is self-serving at all. It's all about the community and people and offering value. And then naturally, as a result of doing that, people know who you are, what you do, and they start then funneling opportunities towards you because you've kind of established yourself as an expert in that area.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of the micro play of what McKinsey does. Victor Chang and I talked back in 2009, and he was on track to be a McKinsey partner. And he told me their playbook is they take a partner, they put them on the board of a nonprofit where the CEO of a Fortune 500 company that they want to work with is on that board. And then they do a bunch of free work for that nonprofit over a number of years. And then after 2 or 3 years, the partner approaches the CEO and says, hey, we've got some research for your industry. I'd like to have dinner with you. And then they go for the value of giving this insider research that's millions of dollars. And like at this point, that CEO can't do anything but help McKinsey or hire McKinsey, I mean.
So they're playing like a 2 to 3 year game, pretty much.
They are, yeah. I obviously have bills to pay and am never that intentional or strategic. It's just I gravitate towards these guys that I like and we get along and I like helping.
Yeah. So now let's kind of move up a little bit in your journey. Today, you have kind of 2 core parts to your business. You have the coach consultant, right? The kind of coaching and consulting work that you do with these B2B companies. And then you also have sales management, where you have a base fee plus kind of compensation or performance. Just share a little bit more about what that looks like and kind of how you arrive at your pricing structure, because a lot of consultants, Josh, are, as you know, are looking for ways to create more leverage to essentially earn more without having to work more. So what's been your experience in the kind of that sales management side? What does it look like? And then how do you actually structure it?
Yeah, well, it's evolving. I think I started out by closing for clients because I enjoy it. Like, it's just something I'm good at.
And when you say closing, just for everyone, you essentially mean to like convert a prospect from a conversation into a paying client.
Exactly. Closing is a very defined part. I don't do prospecting. I don't do lead gen on that front as a sales rep. I'm not entering data in their CRM. I'm not coming up with all that stuff. It's just, look, and in most businesses, I find in the funnel, right, that right around the close, there's a lot of things that can be optimized, and it can make revenue quicker. And then we work our way out if they need to improve their marketing, or we work their way back if it's like some fulfillment or handoff. Like, the closing situation just tends to fit where my brain goes. And Jack Bourne really helped me realize, like, I like setting the strategy. I like getting the clients on board. I really like delivering the vision and the certainty of what the outcome could be, but I don't like a lot of the fulfillment, project management, copywriting, things that common with a lot of marketing related consulting work that I was starting out in. And he says, there's probably guys in Perry's world that you can close for because they're great at the technical side, but not on the client side or closing side. And so I started there and it was effortless. It was really easy. And so I got away from it, kind of moving more into like a interim marketing director over a few years. And I realized I just don't like being the marketing director. It's so much work. It's so much pressure to save the company in a sense. And so last summer, 2019, I just cut back. I stopped all project management. I stopped all copywriting and felt infinitely better. And I cut my scope with a lot of clients. And I started moving back more into some sales and sales management. And the thing that I realized was I'm really, really good at managing salespeople and helping improve sales processes. I was always a marketer first, and sales I was kind of insecure about. And because working with Chet, there were some big sales trainers there and some early in my career. And I kind of got pigeonholed as the marketer, not the sales guy. And I realized, like, no, I'm not going to go toe to toe with like big Sandler sales training organization or something like that. But for 95% of companies out there, I can make a massive improvement on their sales team side. And I realized going through the door of sales comes with so much less pressure than going through the door of marketing. And yeah, so like if I show up to a business owner and they expect me to fix all their marketing, because most business owners aren't very good at marketing, they just kind of abdicate everything on me, right? And they're like, figure out our avatar, figure out our funnel, figure out our ads, figure out all of it. And you can imagine, like, the management of marketing is super complex and gets overwhelming real fast, especially in under-resourced companies where there's not a big enough team or not enough money to hire. And so I found when I go through the marketing door, small business owners under 10 million tend to want to just dump everything on me. When I go through the sales door, most small business owners are decent salespeople. They've hustled their way up to $1 million. They can close deals themselves, but it's not their highest and best. And so coming through that door is less pressure because they're like, well, I kind of understand it anyway. And then the beauty of it is when the lead flow stinks, I can point to that and say, you guys need to fix that. And then it's not my job to fix it because I'm not wearing the marketing hat. But the other leverage point for me is there are a lot of really decent salespeople out there that with the right coaching and guidance and improved systems can close a lot better, so I can get a piece of the upside.
Is that what you do then, right? When you say the sales management and you're taking a kind of a performance fee, just at a high level or in as much detail as you're comfortable sharing, how do you structure that? Like, how do you approach what's kind of your typical base fee? What's your typical percentage fee?
Yeah, so I don't have a typical yet. I've only had a couple of these at this point. And so it's all negotiation. So I'll share very clearly one that just blew up because of coronavirus. But in February, I charged them $3,000. It was a gimme fee because they were a referral from Perry on assessing their sales and marketing. I found a million things. It only took me like 2 days. I drug it out 3 weeks because I wanted them to feel like they got paid, got their money's worth. That whole effort versus fee thing is hilarious. And so I delivered my recommendations. It was 23 points, prioritized them, used my profit priority process to weighted scale them. And they said, we love all of it. We agree with all of it. Our fiscal year ends in the next 4 months. They're in Australia, so their fiscal year ends end of June. And they said, we don't want to do it. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, sure, I'll put my feet to the fire. And so the negotiation was that I would step in overseeing their existing sales and marketing leaders and teams. And then out of the upside, I would get 50% of new revenue because they had a monthly recurring revenue. And then my fee was $7,500 a month for 4 months. And so that was a great deal. And I had no concern of hitting the goals. But then 2 weeks in, coronavirus hits, and they were really fearful, and they blew up the organization, fired a bunch of people, cut everybody back, and my deal was out the window. But the funny thing is the two salespeople that have remained, outdone them. March and April have been bigger than their biggest months prior.
There you go. Learning experience. I mean, one other thing that you mentioned there, Josh, before we wrap here, is you said you cut back. You stopped doing a lot of like the project management and copywriting. So a whole bunch of things that you used to do. And I would guess that probably for a while you felt like you needed to do.
It was definitely a catch-22. I did copywriting and project management because nobody else could do it. And if it wasn't getting done, then the rest of the stuff I was trying to get done couldn't get implemented.
Yeah. And I really want to hit on kind of like the feeling of what that was like and kind of like the mindset that you were and the conversations you were having in your mind. Because I think a lot of times consultants, they know deep down inside they shouldn't necessarily be doing everything they're currently doing, but they don't want to stop because it's quote unquote paying the bills, or what happens to revenue. And so what did you go through? Like, was that a concern that revenue would go down? How do you kind of think about that?
Yeah, it was just getting to a point of where I'd see an email come in from Reich or some project, and I'd be like, it just kind of grown. And I was talking to my wife about it, and I've got the best wife in the world who's grown and gone through bankruptcy with me and grown through so much financial crap. And she's like, well, stop doing it. And so she kind of gave me permission to look at it. And I said, well, because at the end of the day, I'm a blunt guy in life. Like a big guy, I'm 6'1", 250. I'm friendly, I'm caring, but I'm blunt. That's my natural personality. And my friends find it funny that in business, I haven't been as blunt and I haven't been as direct with my clients. And I've realized it's because at the deep down subconscious, and I've cleared a lot of this stuff, emotional traumas or beliefs, I was afraid that if I actually said what I felt, that they'd take their ball and go home and they'd just fire me essentially. But the funniest thing is the more times, and I learned this with Chet because he was a hard guy to work for, and the more I'd punch back and just stand up for myself and not care what happened, the more respect I get, the more I get what I want, the better the outcome is. And of course, I don't like working with people that I have to do that with on a long-term basis. But that was the big shift, was just realizing I really don't enjoy this anymore. And I just need for my own sanity to say no. And I had two clients that I was on sizable retainers, and I told them both, and one of them kind of gasped. I wasn't worried about him firing me, but he understood, and he's a great human being. So I wasn't concerned about that. And then later he's like, yeah, I really miss you doing all of that because I'm doing it now. This is a lot of work. And he's like, but you were right to cut it back. And then the other one was fine. And the fee did go down and there were some lean months, but I felt so much better. Like it didn't matter the money side. The sanity was there, was great.
I think that's so important because in business, especially like the early days when people are getting things going, you feel like the money's the most important thing. You do whatever you can to hustle and to build it up. And then you get to a point, hopefully sooner rather than later, that you realize that even if you've accumulated all this money, but you don't have your health, or you're not happy every day, or you don't have good relationships with your spouse or loved ones or whatever it might be, like money doesn't matter.
Well, and to cut you off, like Victor Chang and I have swapped notes on this over the years. Like he left McKinsey, he moved to Bainbridge Island near Vancouver Island. And we both said, like, we've made massive career decisions that are outside of the norm, but we've actually made more money because of it. And it's like the less I'm doing crap I don't like, the more I get new stuff. It's that whole door closing, window closing, door opening. I don't remember the analogy, but like you make space for something better to replace it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's a great way to end today's conversation. But Josh, real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on here. I want to make sure that people can learn more about you and your work. So just let us know, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, the best place is Facebook. I've got a free Facebook group called Bottleneck Breakthrough Method, and I just share this kind of stuff regularly. I've got a podcast, Bottleneck Breakthrough Podcast. It's on iTunes, Spotify, wherever podcasts are. Get out about weekly. Website, bottleneckbreakthrough.com. The book, you can get it Amazon, Kindle, Audible. But Facebook group's the best. That's where I'm the most active. I realized I don't email my list. I don't get anything back. I never send anything. So the interaction in the Facebook group is great.
Right. Awesome. Thanks again, Josh.
My pleasure, Michael. Take care.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.